Most pilots don't think very seriously about their health until something goes wrong. Today, I'm going to be sitting down with my husband, Joseph Keisling, and we're going to talk about Joseph's 35 years in the airline industry as an airline transport pilot. And like many pilots, he dedicated his life to flying, the schedules, the time zones, the responsibility, and taking care of everyone else, making sure that he got the paycheck and took care of his entire family. What we're going to be talking about today, though, is what he wishes that he had understood. So basically, maybe what he didn't really know that he should have known to pass along to all of you about health, about aging, and about the thing that you fear the most, the FAA medical. If you're flying now, I want you to sit back and think about how much time you have left, not only to get to retirement, but beyond retirement. That's the life that we're in currently. We're post-retirement, making sure that our health is perfect so that we can survive a long time. This conversation really is about you. Anyone that's watching today, I want you to take this seriously. It's about you. So before I go any further, Joe, do you want to be called Joe or Joseph?
You can call me Joe. That's fine.
Perfect. Joe, before we get into the health side of it, I want to give everyone some context. First, we're going to talk about your career, how long you flew, what you flew, and what the aviation demanded of you as a human being. So tell me a little bit about that.
I came in through the military. I was an enlisted Army infantryman. I was selected to go to flight training as a warrant officer. I completed that and flew helicopters and fixed wing in the Army. I got out in the early 80s and there were no jobs. The industry was recovering from deregulation and several airlines had failed. Nobody was hiring. It was a grim time. Everybody was searching for jobs, and most of the jobs paid very poorly. Minimum wage was pretty much the story. I did that. I flew canceled checks, which that doesn't happen anymore because we don't have checks anymore. The sky was full of little airplanes at night going really, really fast, like little Air 23s and Aerostars and things like that, moving checks from the Federal Reserve back and forth to the banking industry. It was kind of a dangerous job. The maintenance was not happening. It was challenging, but things started loosening up a little bit, 84, 85 time frame. American Airlines started hiring again, and Bob Crandall decided to expand the airline by 50%. United started hiring a little bit for attrition. Delta had not hired. When I was hired by American, I felt like I'd won the lottery because very few people actually went through and survived their 3 interview process. It was pretty grueling. Once we finished that, we all went to engineer school, which was even more grueling and became sort of a hazing process. The airline industry was different and it was very militarized, and you kept your mouth shut and you did your job. I was a flight engineer for several years on the 727 and the DC-10. I shut up and I did my job because that's what we were supposed to do. If you didn't, you're going to pay a price. It was a very different industry. I flew the MD-80 as a first officer. I flew the Fokker 100 as a captain. Very quickly fell off captain in 93 as we ended up in a recession. I went back and flew the 76 as an FO for several years to Europe and Asia. I then went back and flew the Super 80 as a captain, the Fokker as a captain, 73 as a captain, 76 captain, 75. I'm losing track here. A330. Once we acquired US Air, I carpet bagged over in Charlotte and flew their A330s. Then I flew the 777 to finish up. It was a good career. It was 35 years. I was hired young and I was hired at the beginning of the hiring cycle, which is the best place to possibly be. The only thing I could possibly imagine a better deal is today is these young guys who got hired with 1,500 hours at Delta or American or United. They probably pretty much hit the jackpot too, like me. There's a lot of luck. It's not really skill. It's just luck when you're hired. And I was hired at the right time.
Yeah. Such an amazing career that you've had, 35 years. You think about it now with the industry, and the folks that are getting hired today are more than likely, if they started young like you did, might have longer than 35 years. It's really amazing. The one thing that I want to think about is all the pilots that are watching this, and even if you're not a pilot, it's just such an interesting tale to tell. And you're going to recognize this immediately. Everything that Joe went through, all of the transitions, all of the remembering. That's just the career piece of it. There's so much more that we haven't even talked about yet. I want to ask, when you first started flying, tell me a little bit about the health part of the conversation as a pilot.
There was no health conversation.
I shouldn't even laugh. It's unbelievable.
You have to understand the especially for the military or the 1970s in America. When I started flying, we were coming off of Vietnam and things were not going well. And there was a lot of malaise or unhappiness in America. And a lot of people took that out through alcohol and just general bad behavior. Nobody really cared about health. I remember in the 1970s when people started running, there was two factions, the people who were just thought they were complete idiots and the people who were actually out running. And they were kind of looked at as freaks. The old joke in the military was your breakfast was basically a puke and a Coke when you crawled out to the airplane, or a cigarette in the head of the oxygen mask. It was not unusual to drink quite a bit. And it was in the culture. We really didn't care about any type of nutrition. It was never taught to us. A good meal would be a honey butter cup of coffee for breakfast. That's about the way it was. And that kind of played over into the airline industry when I first got there. We basically ate out of vending machines at the simulator. There was really nothing to eat. The cafeteria had, hamburgers and hot dogs sometimes when it was open. On trips, as a poor flight engineer making nothing, you'd often bid trips to try to find food. I used to love the transcons on the DC-10 because we'd be fed well. That was a big deal for me. That was the only fruits and vegetables that I was ever going to get in my life at that point. It was not unusual. Anybody who ate or paid attention to eating or anything like that was kind of looked at like a freak. I have to say it was very different. Nobody had wheeled luggage. If you had a wheeled luggage bag, you were considered like some kind of psycho wimp or something. We had a guy who carried his own meals. He carried his own meals because he thought there was going to be a nuclear war and he wanted to be prepared for it. He would always pack a big extra suitcase. You were kind of ostracized into the fringes if you cared about nutrition or anything like that. Balance today, where it's flipped so hard that it's unrecognizable from where we started before.
Yeah, it's amazing. One thing that inspired me to become a dietitian, because I quickly realized, being married to you, that how much you guys suffered. And it really takes a toll on your body. Thinking this, how not eating is normalized, it's really not normal to expect someone to sit behind a closed door now, post 9/11, and not have enough food to be able to foster the energy to think straight. I'm wondering, at what point did you start feeling like your FAA medical, anyone watching this, let me back up for a second, Federal Aviation Administration medical exam, that if you're below 40, you go through once a year. If you're above 40 and you're a captain, you go through twice a year. There's a big stigma about fearing the failure of your FAA medical. Not really a failure, it's really a deferral until you get things cleaned up. At what stage in your career can you recall that you felt like you could show up to the FAA medical exam and just fly by the seat of your pants, so to speak, and be okay? Was there ever that point in time?
Yeah, I thought I was a very healthy individual when I was younger because you're bulletproof, because you don't have the knowledge and the experience to really understand what's going on. I would go get a physical every 6 months or whatever, and it would be okay. Nobody would ever say anything, and I would just go in and get it done. About at the age of my late 30s, even though I ran and exercised and my blood pressure started increasing, it was because of diet. There's no way around it. I did not understand how to eat and I ate poorly. That combined with even moderate alcohol, consumption, it started creeping up. In response, I just started running harder. I started exercising harder. And that managed it. It was always on the high side of normal. It would be 10 points above where I want it to be, but it was never an issue with the FAA. As I got in my 40s, I exercised even harder. You and I both trained for Ironman in our 40s. I didn't understand how to eat, and I really did not have a good functional idea on how to eat caloric wise or what to eat. I would come in off a 100-mile bike ride and drink Guinness and eat pizza, thinking that I'm carb reloading, probably the worst thing I could possibly do. As we have morphed into this profession that you are in the last 10 years, I have learned so much that I just don't even want to think about how bad we ate before.
I know.
And it's not that hard to eat well.
Yeah.
It's just you have to put a little effort into it at the beginning, and then it just comes naturally.
Mhm.
It's like I had an instructor learning to fly helicopters, and we were doing some maneuver, and I'm slapping the controls around, which is a big no-no in a helicopter. You see a lot of guys do that, slap the controls around. He said, just concentrate on holding the cyclic steady. He said, if you concentrate on that for about 10 hours, you'll never think of it again. He was absolutely right, because after about 10 hours of concentration, it never was an issue again.
Yeah.
It's like eating. If you think about it and you start building some basic foundations, it solves itself.
Yeah, it's so true. For everyone watching, I want to reiterate one thing. Normal blood pressure per the FAA right now is 120/80. Now, for United States, they have relaxed those numbers a little bit. I believe it's creeping up to about 130. We are seeing a rise in blood pressure. A lot of it is related to what I believe to be dehydration, but that'll be a whole nother story. If you keep watching my channel, you'll learn so much. I guarantee you'll almost be a dietitian yourself. We will talk about hydration at length at a later date. If you haven't already, look down below and click the subscribe button. That way you'll get notified. I release new videos every single Tuesday. You don't want to miss a beat at all. Joe, what went through your mind when you started to realize that your blood pressure was creeping up? Did you start fearing your career or worrying or going into the medical with a little bit more stress? Because this is a thing for me. As a dietitian, I get a lot of pilots that are just scared for their medical. They start reeling themselves up months beforehand, almost like I need to be a psychologist too, which I'm not, and I'm going to stay in my lane. Tell me, did the fear ever creep in?
Not until I started having significant issues where I would end up losing my medical eventually. I thought I could manage it. There's a syndrome called Dunning-Kruger. It says people that are terribly smart are terribly confident. And because they don't realize they're not terribly smart, that's kind of like me. I was just terribly confident that I could manage this and fix it. Truth be told, I was getting sicker and sicker every year. I'll probably, honestly, I don't want to say that I don't think I would be here, but I would definitely not be in the situation and with the health that I have now unless I had paid attention more than I did or had morphed into paying more attention. I was forced to. If you have the gift of doing it out without being forced to, it makes it so much easier.
It
You
does.
know, then you get to manage the scenario and you get to plan it out. If it's dumped on you, then you got to fix it. That makes it much harder.
Yeah. That's something that we have in our household. You and I together over the last 20 years have always said we don't want to live to retirement because we know, unfortunately, how many pilots do pass right at retirement, before retirement, and never make it to retirement, or the day after they're found in their beds. So we've always said we want to make it beyond retirement. We want to be able to spend all that money that we have scrimped and saved for. The reflection that I want to talk about here is that this is what pilots don't talk about. They don't talk about the quiet stress streaks that just continually creeps up and creeps up. They don't talk about the uncertainty of your health. You think, oh, I'm gold, everything's going to be fine. But then the one day, I always know when I get a phone call that isn't in my area code that, well, we all think it's spam, but it's probably a pilot on that line that has had an FAA medical issue. They're soliciting me to be able to help. The fear of what a deferred medical could mean. It's not something that you ever want to have to go through. I want to ask if you could talk about yourself in 20 years earlier. What would you have done differently, knowing everything that you know now?
I would have tried to understand and learn diabetes a little better. I would try to understand just basic nutrition, fats, proteins, carbs, that kind of stuff. I had no idea. You kind of have a general idea as a layperson what they do or what they're for, but you don't realize how you're hurting yourself in many ways because I wouldn't eat protein. My thing was, I don't want to gain weight. I'm not going to eat protein. Meat is bad for you. That was the big push for many years. I would try to avoid any type of protein, not as a willful action. I'm not going to eat the meat. I'll just have the bread. And fortunately, that was the absolute wrong thing to do. If I could go back, if I had the ability to pay someone to tell me how to eat in my 40s so I can make it to my 50s, 60s, or whatever without having to worry about diabetes or blood pressure, I would have done it in a minute. And there wasn't that resource, and nobody ever talked about it.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate that finally somebody's coming out and saying, hey, I can help you fix this.
It's always been mind blowing to me that there's never been anyone to take care of our aviators. I just see so many sad stories that it's a blessing and a curse in a way, that the things that have happened to us, and that we'll talk about that in later videos. If you all love this so much, we'll continue to tell this story. I want to ask, you said something about eating the carbs instead of the protein, and I agree. The reason why, my belief as a dietitian, we eat carbs is because we get the dopamine hit, the serotonin. You're away from your families, you're in a hotel room, you're missing your kid's dance recital, you're stuck in the snowstorm from hell and you can't get home. So, what's going to make you feel better? Eating a steak isn't going to pump you up and make you feel nice and cozy and warm. Eating some chocolate or some ice cream or some bread, that's what's going to bring those good feelings. It's very well known that carbs make you feel better. Absolutely. If there's one thing that you take away from this today as far as diet goes, we didn't intend for this to be a diet lesson, but we'll do that, is protein. Protein keeps your blood sugar really nice and even, and it reduces the ability for you to get prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. Really important. Overconsumption of carbohydrates, type 2 diabetes, absolutely reversible. So that is something really good to put in your back pocket and always remember. I want to ask another follow-up question. Why do you think that pilots underestimate their long-term health? What could be the reason behind that? I've always wanted to know that.
I think to be in the profession, you have to be a confident person. You think you can handle most situations. I don't think it's an arrogance. I just think it's just confidence. And so you think you can manage things. You are a fixer. Your mental personality is a fixing personality. It's not commonplace. It's not uncommon to see people be in denial because I'm strong. I've done this. I flew jets in the military, or I did this. I survived a conflict or whatever. I can do this. I'm bulletproof. Unfortunately, that doesn't work. It doesn't work, but it's comforting to be wrapped in that cocoon. But once the medical goes away or you have a health issue, it is a slap in the face. Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan till you get hit in the face. Losing your medical is getting hit in the face.
Yeah.
It is a step back.
Confidence is one of the biggest things that I love about pilots, and it's why I care so deeply and enjoy being able to help them. When you teach them something, they don't just bypass it and say, well, thanks for letting me know that. You can follow up with them, just like with you, all these years, the things that you've learned about nutrition, about taking care of you, you're applying it all today. And with anyone that I've ever coached, it's such an honor to be able to be connected to these people, even after 6 years, and just see how well they have done. I'm going to give you an example here. We had the snowstorm in Nashville. It is January 2026, and someone posted a picture of their husband trying to commute to Charlotte. I was so proud because I saw the picture and I counted his bags and he had his lunch bag. That was 4 years ago that he worked with me. That is one of the reasons that I love teaching the simple routines. I love being able to connect with pilots so that I can be able to help them. Now, I want to ask you one other thing is, looking back on your career, what do you think a successful career now means to you while you're sitting in the retirement seat?
It's nice to have money. We went through 9/11 and the bankruptcies and everything else. It was a real black swan event. The money that we thought was going to be there isn't really there and at the level that we thought it was going to be. That's okay because we're comfortable. It's not about the money. It's about the health. You can have all the money in the world, but if you can't walk up the stairs, it means nothing. I just can't emphasize enough that you have to be conscious of your health. You have to worry about it and you have to deal with it. It's easy to push it under the table, but it will come back and bite you.
They say the new wealth is health, and it is true. I like to say, are you going to pay the doctor now or later? So, thank you so much, Joe, for allowing me to do this interview with you. We've been planning it for a long time. I hope that people are excited about it. If you have any comments or questions, you can put them down in the comment box. I will answer anything, and Joe will be here beside me also if he wants to answer. You can pose questions back and forth. The sharing of all of this is just so honest and raw, and I think it's great information that people have been asking for and wanting to hear. Pilots out there, you don't need to fear. You just need to make a plan for your health. I'm going to leave a few resources below. The number one, a couple weeks ago, I published FAA medical checklist. That will be linked below still. You can check my website, aviationdietitian.com. If you want more tips and tricks, look for me on Instagram, Aviation Dietitian. And as always, make sure that you're flying with the confidence of your FAA medical. Nothing else is going to help you more. If you're concerned about your FAA medical, I will also have my email address. You can private message me and I will answer you back to see that I am a live and real person that can help. Joe, any ending words you want to tell the people out there?
Enjoy the career. It's a great ride.
It is. We've been very blessed. Thank you so much for watching.